Good day, class. It's Sir Capistrano again, and welcome back to another discussion here in our Chem 21 Organic Chemistry. Wherein for today, we'll be talking about acyl compounds. And by acyl compounds, these are organic compounds uh, that are carboxylic acids and their functional derivatives. So, by acyl compounds, halos wala itong pinagkaiba. Malaking pinagkaiba, pero kumbaga, based on structures, we will be actually talking about other carbonyl compounds. Ang kaibahan lang, may special dito sa carbonyl compounds na to dahil dun sa additional ng hydroxyl. And para hindi na kayo malito kung ano ba yung pinagsasabi ko, acyl compounds are basically carbonyl compounds, but instead of having R groups attached to the carbonyl carbon, one side of the carbonyl carbon, acyl compounds have living groups attached to it. By living groups, it can be different living groups such as hydroxides. It can be other carboxyls. It can be a halide or a halogen. It can be alkoxide or what we call ester bonds, and also we can have amines that are attached into it. So when we talk about acyl compounds, ang pinag-uusapan nating acyl group mismo dyan or yung acyl na functional group natin ay itong mismong group nito. So that is what we call our acyl group. Okay? So itong W dito, yan yung ating living group. Okay? So by living group, dahil sa complexity or dahil sa dami ng pwedeng maging derivatives ng ano natin, there are actually a lot of acyl compounds. In fact, there are five types of acyl compounds, and by acyl compounds, these are actually just carboxylic acids and its derivatives. So by that, here are some of the classes of our acyl compounds. So, nilib ko munang blank. Ang first class natin or ang unang type or ang unang acyl compound natin yung tinatawag natin carboxylic acids. So, this is one of the functional groups na napag-usapan natin last time when we talk about functional groups during the start of the semester. And it has a general structure like this. So, we have here this acyl group. So by acyl group, we have there a carbonyl group that has an R group. And that R group can be an alkyl, an aryl, or even a hydrogen. So by hydrogen, usually yun yung ating mga methane, methane derivatives. And for carboxylic acid, we actually have this uh, hydroxide in the other side of our carbonyl carbon bearing that structure. So, of all acyl compound, ito lang yung merong special na group. So, kanina, ang pinag-usapan natin, ang sabi natin, itong part na to, ito yung tinatawag nating acyl group. But for carboxylic acids, we actually have this group again. And this group is what we call the carboxyl group. Okay? So sa lahat ng acyl compound, ito lang yung may special na name para dun sa functional group niya or yung para dun sa site ng reaction. And as you may see here, we actually have here a living group which is actually an OH. Or as you may have known in this class, this is what we call the hydroxyl group. Right? That is the first type or first class of our compounds containing acyl group. And another compound bearing an acyl group is what we call our acid halides. For acid halides, parehas lang yun. Lagi lang yung ding merong acyl or being an acids. So we have here this acyl group. And we have a leaving group which is actually our halogens. So, ang leaving group natin ay halogen. Okay? So, it can be chlorine, bromine, iodine, or kahit ano pang. ano natin, mga halogens natin. So as you may notice here, kaya siya tinawag na derivative ng carboxylic acid. Pinalitan lang natin yung OH na living group with an halogen, which is we represent as X. So we still have the acyl group represented in black ink or black color black, and we have there the living group which is X. Right? So another class of our acyl compound is the acid anhydride. So by acid anhydride, ang structure niya ay ganito. So for our acid anhydride, we still have our acyl group here, and we have a leaving group, which is actually our this compound. So we will have this anhydride. Okay? So this is our acid anhydride, and as you may notice here, the leaving group here is our anhydride, which is actually just another acyl group na merong oxygen. Okay? And another type or class of organic compound having acyl group is our esters. So esters, parang familiar lang din sa ether, ano? Kasi andun yung ter ulit. So for esters, ang kanyang general structure is we have here this acyl group. Laging gano'n ano, syempre, acyl compound ito. Then we have here a leaving group which is actually an alkoxide. And as you may notice here, we actually have here an ester bond. Yan yung tinatawag nating ester bond. So that ester bond, for ester bond, we have here an alkoxide that is actually attached to our acyl group. So, kapag hindi acyl group ito, maaalala nyo kung yan ay carbon lang tapos wala tayong double bond with oxygen dyan, this instead of being an ester, right, that is actually our, what do you call this, an ether instead of ester. And we have here a living group, which is actually an alkoxide. Okay? And the last class of our organic compounds containing acyl group is our amides. And by its name, amides, amines. So we still have this acyl group. So meron tayo actually tatlong type ng amides. So isulat ko muna na meron tayo dito tatlong klase or tatlong acyl groups. And for each acyl groups, meron kasi tayong tinatawag na primary, secondary, tertiary, and ayun lang, primary, secondary, and tertiary amides. So for primary amide, we will have here a living group which is actually an amine. Okay, by amine, we have here an ammonia. Then for secondary amide, we will have here a nitrogen that is actually attached to another R group. Then we will have here our hydrogen. Okay. So then we have for tertiary amide, we will have here this compound bearing two R groups. So yan yung ating mga amide. So this will be the first primary amide, the secondary amide, and the tertiary amide. Okay. And as you may see here, we have three different living groups here. We have here the amine, ammonia. We have here the amine bearing one R group and the amine bearing two R groups. Okay? So those are our amides. And those are our organic compounds containing acyl group. So balikan lang natin. First, we have here the carboxylic acid. So for the carboxylic acid, we have there an acyl compound bearing hydroxyl. For acid halides, we have here acyl group bearing halogen. And we have here acid anhydride. We have here an acyl group with an anhydride. And for ester, we have here an acyl group bearing an alkoxide or an OR. And we have here amides, wherein we have three types of amides. We have the primary, secondary, and tertiary amides. So as you can see here, acid halides, acid anhydrides, and esters and amides are generally referred to as functional derivatives of carboxylic acids. So since they can be obtained uh, from and converted back to carboxylic acid. Ang ibig lang sabihin nito, kung meron kang carboxylic acid, using some reactions, pwede mo siyang convert into acid halides. Meron kang carboxylic acid, pwede mo siyang ma-convert into acid anhydrides, and carboxylic acid, pwede mo siyang ma-convert into ester and also amides. So, kumbaga, halimbawa, meron kang carboxylic acid, nag-add ka ng amine, by amine, those organic compounds bearing nitrogen, pwede tayo magkaroon ng amides. So, kapag meron kang alcohol, inad mo sa carboxylic acid, pwede tayo magkaroon ng esters. So, yun yung sinasabi dito na functional derivatives of carboxylic acid, yung ating acid halides, acid anhydrides, yung ating esters, at saka yung ating amides. And for the naming ng itong mga to, actually related lang din yun sa ating mga carboxylic acid. So, kumbaga, if we are to talk about the IUPAC naming of our carboxylic acid. For example, we have, let's say, metanoic acid. So, kung gagawin mo siyang acid and halide, ang kailangan mo lang gawin dyan, ay papalitan mo lang yung oic dito, kasi oic yung ating mga carboxylic acid. Tapos, halimbawa, ang inad mo dito, nag-add ka ng chlorine. So, ano yung magiging pangalan niya? So, magkakaroon tayo dito ng methanol chloride. So, ganun yung nangyayari. So, halimbawa, meron kang methanoic acid, tapos nag-add ka ng anhydride. So, ano mangyayari doon? So, same lang yun. Kumbaga, meron kang methanoic acid. So, methanoic pa rin siya. Tapos, madadagdagan mo lang siya ng anhydride. So, ilalagay mo lang doon, methanoic anhydride. Okay? Depende kung anong anhydride yung inad mo. So, halimbawa, ang inad mo ay ethyl anhydride. By ethyl anhydride, meron kang ethyl group doon sa iyong anhydride. So, uh, that will be your naming. And for ester, halimbawa, nag-add ka ng OR. Okay? So, metanoic yung start mo, tapos nag-add ka ng methanol. Let's say, nag-add ka ng CH3OH. Matatanggal yung OH mo dyan. So, pwede kang magkaroon ng alkoxide, then magkakaroon ka ng ester. So, imbes na methanoic acid, magkakaroon ka ng methanoic ester. Okay? So, imbes na, ayan. Then, for amides, depende kung ano yung amides na i-add mo. So, bale, ito yung medyo complex yung naming yung sa ating amides, but later on, we will actually consider the naming of these amides. So in that, those are the functional derivatives of carboxylic acid. We have acid halides, acid anhydrides, we have esters, and amides. Okay? So, since napag-uusapan na rin naman natin yung naming, let's go on to the nomenclature of carboxylic acids. And in that, hindi ko na masyadong susundin yung pattern natin last time na kailangan kong ilagay pa lahat ng system kung paano na tayo nagpapangalan ng ating mga organic compound. But for this, I'll be just showing you different ways on how we can name carboxylic acids. So, focus muna tayo rin sa mga straight chain carboxylic acids. So, by straight chain, walang branching, wala rin tayong substituents. So, here are some of the common names and IUPAC names of those carboxylic acids. As you may notice here, for the common names of our carboxylic acids, wala tayo actually pattern. So, pwede yung tingnan. So as you may notice here, for those carboxylic acid bearing just one one carbon atom, tinatawag natin yung methanoic acid for its IUPAC name, and we also call it formic acid. So, saan natin usually nakukuha yung formic acid? Nakukuha natin yan sa ants. Kung kayo ay may time na aksidente kayong nakasubo ng langgam at nalasahan nyo na medyo may asim, may tangy na taste, yung ano, yung langgam, yun yung actually yung formic acid natin. And also, for those carboxylic acid bearing two carbon atoms, we call them acetic acid for its common name. And its IUPAC name is ethanoic acid. So hopefully nakukuha niyo yung pattern kung ano nangyayari. Kung makikita niyo dyan, we still have the methan, ethan, propan, butan, uh, pentan, hexan, heptan, octan, nonan, decan, and the like. And ang nangyayari lang, we just add the suffix OIC, then we have there the acid. Right? So we have there methanoic acid, ethanoic acid, profanoic acid, butanoic acid, pentanoic acid, hexanoic acid, heptanoic acid, octanoic acid, nonanoic acid, and decanoic acid. And as you may notice din dun sa kanilang mga common names, minsan sila ay nakabase dun sa kung saan sila usually nakukuha. Except for the first four, uh, but for the carboxylic acid bearing five carbon atoms. We have here the valeric acid that comes from valerian roots. And valerian roots actually ay ginagamit siya as herbal medicine. And as kung tama ako ng pagkakaalala, valerian valeric acid is actually used for as sedative. And as you may notice here, we also have here the caproic acid or the hexanoic acid that comes from goats. And as you may see here, it comes from the scientific name L-copper. Okay? So, kaya nakuha yung cap. Kaya meron tayong caproic acid and that is also the same for octanoic acid. We have the caprylic acid. And for the canoic acid, we have the capric acid. All of them or some of the common source of those caproic acid, caprylic acid, and capric acid are actually L-copper or yung tinatawag natin goats. And we also have the ethantic acid or what we call enantic pala acid for IUPAC name of heptanoic acid kasi 7 yung kanyang carbon. And for 8, we have octanoic. And for 9, we have pelargonic acid. Galing siya sa, actually, herb yata to. Flowering herb siya. Yung tinatawag na pelargonium. Okay? So that is our nonoic acid. That is for the straight chain, ha, class? So, paano nga ba yung naging 9, halimbawa? So, kung ita-count nyo yun, so we have here 1, tapos 7 times 1. So, 1 plus 7, that will be 8 plus 1. So, we have there 9. So, that is also the same for the other straight chain carboxylic acids. So, those are the straight chain carboxylic acids. So, how about those na merong substituents or yung mga branch? We will actually follow our system in IUPAC naming or IUPAC naming of our of alkanes. Ang kaibahan lang, imbis na E yung ilalagay natin sa dulo ng mga alkanes natin, we will add the suffix OIC. Then we will have our acid. So yun yung mangyayari dyan. Replace E nung alkane natin by oic space acid. Okay? So, for that, tingnan natin muna itong first example natin. This is just a branch, carboxylic acid, and as you will see here, meron siyang mga branches. So, same concept. Kailangan lang natin hanapin yung parent chain. Pagkahanap ng parent chain natin, papalitan lang natin yung E ng ating parent chain and ng oic acid. So, as you may see here, we actually have this branch, carboxylic acid, Ba't natin siya nalamang carboxylic acid? Kasi meron tayong carbon, double bond, and we have OH. Okay? So, in that scenario, ang start ng count natin ay doon mismo sa acyl carbon natin. So, this one. So, we will have here 1. Hanapin natin yung longest chain. So, pag dito tayo pababa, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Pero pag papunta tayo rin sa kabila, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So, either sa mga to, 5. As you may see here, mas mahaba yung papunta rin sa kaliwa kesa rin sa pababa. So, basically, for this one, this is, since 5, that will be pentanoic acid. Okay? So, kailangan na lang nating i-account yung mga substituents natin kasi hindi natin yan naisama dun sa naming ng pentanoic acid. As you may see here, we have here an ethyl. Okay? We have here a methyl. Bakit siya methyl? Kasi isa lang yung carbon. Bakit to ethyl? Kasi dalawa yung carbon. And also, we have here methyl. So, we have here a dimethyl. So, ganun pa rin yung arrangement natin. Ang magiging arrangement natin ay alphabetical order pa rin. So, mauuna ang E kesa sa M. So, we will have here ethyl first. Ethyl, methyl, methyl, tapos yung pentanoic acid. So, paano natin yung gagawin? Siyempre, kailangan natin yung numbering, ano? So, since yung ethyl natin ay nakakonect siya sa carbon 2, we will have here 2 ethyl. Then, as you may see here, meron tayong dalawang methyl. Parehas silang nakakabit or naka-attach dun sa fourth carbon. So, we'll have here 4, 4, dash ulit. Kasi as you may have remembered, we actually separate words with numbers using dashes and numbers na numbers using comma. Tapos, paano tayo sa words and words? Hindi natin yung pinaghihiwalay. So, dahil dalawa yung methyl, we will have yung di-methyl. Tapos, yung ano na, straight chain natin. So, that would be pentane dapat. Pero, papalitan natin yung E ng OIC acid. So, may space yan. Walang space yung iba. Okay? And as you may see here, this is our 2-ethyl 4,4-dimethyl pentanoic acid. Okay? So, those are for straight chains. How about substituted carboxylic acids? So, for substituted carboxylic acid, ayun, ipa-follow lang natin yung the same system na ginawa natin dun sa aldehydes and ketones. Wherein, mas gagawin natin priority yung carboxylic acid kesa ron sa mga aldehydes, sa ketone groups, dun sa mga OH natin, sa mga ORs and aldehydes. Isama na rin natin dito yung iba pang substituents like amine and kung ano-ano pa. And for this scenario, as you may see here, ganun lang ulit yung system na gagawin natin. We just need to count yung pinakamahabang chain ng carbon na pwede nating magawa. So, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4. And dahil 4 siya, butane, palitan lang natin yung E ng butane ng OIC. We have here butanoic acid. So, we just need to account for the for our substituents, and our substituents here is we have here an OH and we also have here an amino. Okay, so in here pwede natin gawin ay pangalanan na lang natin to. So mauuna ang amino kesa ang hydroxy, so we will have here 2. Bakit siya 2? Kasi naka-attach siya sa second carbon. Amino, then dash, have here hydroxy. Ang hydroxy natin ay naka-attach sa third carbon. So, we have here 3-hydroxy. Tapos, susunod mo lang yung 1, 2, 3, 4 na yan. So, we have here butanoic. So, pwede kong ibaba yung acid kasi kailangan natin ng space. So, we have here 3-amino, 3-hydroxy butanoic acid. Okay? And that will be the same for this one, yung sa third example natin. Ganun lang ulit, count ka lang ulit ng carbon, since may carbon dito, and carbon dito. Hanapin mo lang yung longest carbon chain. So we'll have here 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 dun sa taas, maalin, okay lang yun. And as you may see here, we have here 2 substituents. We have here the methyl and the bromine. So, may mauuna ang bromine bago ang methyl. So, this will be 2 bromo. Dash mo lang ulit para dun sa methyl. Ang methyl natin ay naka-attach sa third. So, we have here 3 methyl. That is 4. So, we have here butanoic space acid. That will be our 3-bromo methyl butanoic acid. And as you may see here, class, the same scenario na pwede nating ma-encounter like dun sa mga dati nating examples sa aldehydes and sa ketones, wherein we have here a double bond. Same scenario rin yung gagawin nyo, same process pa rin yung gagawin nyo, but instead of, halimbawa ito, we have here, pag nag-count tayo ng carbon chains dito, we have 1, 2, 3. Supposedly, ang ipapangalan natin dyan, kung wala yung double bond, we will have here propanoic acid. But for this scenario, since hindi ito alkane, ito ay alkene, we just need to replace that A with E kasi propene acid or propanoic acid. So, hindi yan yung magiging pangalan natin para dito sa ano na to, sa compound na ito. This will actually be propa propapenoic acid. So, paano kapag triple bond yan? You just need to replace that E or that A with Y. So, you will have propanoic acid. Okay? And for this last example, ito yung mga examples na medyo na nakakainis tingnan. But basically, as you may see here, we actually have here 2 carboxylic or carboxyl group. And for this one, we actually call this our uh, dicarboxylic acid. Okay? And for this scenario, ang kailangan lang natin gawin for this one, we just need, pag nakakuha ka ng dalawang carboxylic na group, you just need to name this middle part, kung ano man, kung nasaan man yung middle part na yan, then you just need to locate or just add dianoic. Bakit dianoic? Dianoic, dalawang oic acid. Okay? So, as you may see here, we have here a cyclohexane. So, you just need to write that. You have here cyclohexane. Then, you have here lagyan natin ng pwesto. So, we can count this as 1. Wait, this is 2. And this is 3. So, we will have here cyclohexane 1, 3, dianoic acids. So that is how we name some branch or substituted carboxylic acid. So for this one, nagmukha na ang substituents natin or dun sa dulo natin ay nagkaroon tayo ng dalawang substituent na na carboxyl group. But for this one, yun, yung dianoic lang yung gagamitin natin way para sabihin na meron tayong dicarboxylic acid. And we actually have different types of simple dicarboxylic acid wherein pwede tayong magkaroon ng magkaibang naming para dun sa mga dicarboxylic acid na to. Depende kung ano yung nasa gitna nila. Kung ilang carbon compounds yung nasa gitna nila. And as you may see here, we can actually have here an N or we can have here dicarboxylic acid na wala siyang nasa gitna. Yung tinatawag nating oxalic acid. So, ang itsura ng oxalic acid na yan is you will have here your COOH and that COOH will actually be attached to our COOH. So, anong itsura niyan, sir? So, bale, ang magiging itsura niyan, meron kang dalawang carbon atom dito, tapos meron kang double bond dun sa iyong mga oxygen, then you will have here OH and this OH. That is our oxalic acid. Ang oxalic acid actually, madalas itong gamitin kung di ako nagkakamali sa paggawa ng sabon. So we have here the oxalic acid. Okay. And if we have one CH2 dun sa gitna ng dalawang dicarboxylic acid natin, tinatawag natin yung malonic acid. So by malonic acid, you will have here tatlong carbon atoms. So you will have here your CH2, you will have here your another carbon, then meron ka ritong double bond sa oxygen, tapos pareha silang may OH. So that is our malonic acid. And for succinic acid, ganun lang din magiging itsura niya, but instead of isa lang, yung nasa gitna, magkakaroon ka ng dalawa. So, you will have your CH2 attached to a CH2. Then you will have here your carbon and another carbon here. That carbon will have a double bond with oxygen and you will have your OH. So that is your succinic uh, dicarboxylic acid or yung succinic acid. For glutaric acid, ganun lang din, same scenario, but instead of two, magiging tatlo na siya. So gawin ko na lang simple, ano, tatlo yung nasa gitna, ibig sabihin plus dalawa, so you will have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you will have here your OH, you have here your OH, and you will have here your two carbon to carbon double bond. Okay? So that is also the same for your adipic acid and pimelic acid. So instead na tatlo, magiging apat. Instead na apat, magiging lima. So, drawing na rin natin. So that will be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have here your OH, OH, carbon to carbon to oxygen double bond, carbon to oxygen double bond. And for pylemic acid, 5 yung nasa gitna. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you will have here your OH, and you will have here your OH, then your so, dalawang carboxylic group lagi or carboxyl group sa bawat terminal side ng ating mga simple dicarboxylic acid. So, mayroon bang mga dicarboxylic acid na hindi simple? Yes po. Madaming dicarboxylic acid na hindi simple. Na hindi simple, magkakaroon tayo ng branches about dun sa mga nasa gitnang part ng ating carboxylic acid or pwede rin namang katulad ng example natin kanina dun sa cyclohexane 1,3-dianoic acid, meron tayong mga scenario na pwede tayong magkaroon ng ano, na benzene, pwede tayong benzene na may dalawang carboxylic acid, pwede tayong magkaroon ng cyclohexane and kung ano-ano pa, branch na alkane, branch na alkene and the like. So those are our dicarboxylic acids. Okay? And continuing on with the nomenclature of other carboxylic acid, we actually have some long chain carboxylic acids or yung mga tinatawag nating fatty acids. So these are carboxylic acid having a long chain of from 10 carbon atoms to 20 na carbon atoms. So as you can see here, nandito yung 10 natin. Capric acid, kung maalala nyo, ito yung binigay natin kanina. Ito yung ating ecanoic acid. It actually has 10 carbon atoms. We have here 1 plus 8, kasi 8 times 1 plus 1, so that is 10. Para dun sa kabilang side, yung ating sa may unsaturated fatty acids, nag-start na agad dito sa 12. Okay. So, for the saturated fatty acids, para lang din itong long chain, nung katulad nung sa ano natin kanina, dun sa mga dicarboxylic acid, ang kaibahan, iisang side lang yung may carboxyl group. And as you may notice here, puro iisa lang yung carboxyl group na nasa dulo. Okay? Yan, pare-parehas yan. Pati dito sa ating linoleic acid at saka yung sa arachidonic acid. Okay? Iisang side lang yung merong carboxyl group. And as you may notice here, we have this division. By this division, we have the saturated fatty acid and the unsaturated fatty acid. So what makes the saturated saturated and what makes unsaturated unsaturated? So for this type of carboxylic acids or fatty acids, kung mapapansin nyo actually dito class, yung sa chain ng ating saturated fatty acids, mas marami yung hydrogen kesa dun sa unsaturated side natin. So kung titingnan nyo dito, ang number of carbon atom ng ating lauric acid at ng ating palmitoleic acid ay actually parehas. Parehas silang merong 12 na carbon atoms. Check nga natin. So we have here 1, 10 plus times 1, that would be 10. So 11, 12. So ganun din dito, ano? So we have here 1 plus 5. So 6 plus 1 plus 1. 8 plus 7. So we have there 15. Wait lang nga ulitin natin. Ano ba ito? Kailangan check ka class. Parang nagkamali ako dito. Hmm. Check ko pa lang class. Mhm. Wala dito yung palmitoleic acid. Mhm. Hindi pala class. Mali yung sinasabi. We actually have here 18 para dyan sa mga yan. Okay? So, yan yung 18 dito sa ating oleic acid, linoleic acid, and linolenic acid. Tapos, meron tayo dito sa arachidonic acid. Check lang natin. So, we have here 5, 5 plus 12, 17, 20 naman yata ito. Okay? So, yun yung ilan sa mga unsaturated fatty acids natin. Okay? So, ano yung dahilan kung bakit sila naging unsaturated? That is due to the double bonds class. As you see here, we have different scenarios na meron tayong mga double bonds. And those double bonds actually the causes less number of hydrogen atoms, and that less hydrogen atom makes it what we call our unsaturated fatty acids. So ano ba yung relevance nitong saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids? Usual natin silang natitake sa diet natin, and by usual natin silang natitake sa diet natin, ito actually ay building blocks ng mga tinatawag nating triacylglycerols or yung tinatawag nating fats mismo or oils. Dahil dun sa ano na yon, dahil dun sa presence ng saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids, we were able to distinguish kung alin yung mas healthy na saturated na fatty acids. So for this scenario, mas healthy actually yung mga tinatawag nating unsaturated fatty acids. Okay? So in that, we will be ending our discussion here on our distinction of saturated and unsaturated fatty acids. So for your bonus or your pop quiz in this lecture, I would like you to find some examples of carboxylic acid that we usually encounter. Okay? So, please wag nang isama yung mga carboxylic acid na mga na-mention natin dito, wherein pinag-usapan natin yung ilan dun sa mga carboxylic acids natin, yung ating formic acid, yung ating acetic acid, capric acid, and the like. Ano? So, yung mga examples na binigay natin kanina, wag na pong ibigay. So, at least give me 4 examples of carboxylic acids that we usually encounter in our daily life. Right? So, in that, I will be ending this discussion. And for the next part of our lecture or discussion here in carboxylic acids, we will be talking about the physical properties of carboxylic acids and some of the reactions regarding carboxylic acids. And on those relationship of carboxylic acids, I will be able to show you kung paano natin mako-convert yung carboxylic acid papunta at pabalik sa carboxylic acid papunta sa acid halides, sa acid anhydrides, esters, and so that will be all for this lecture. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.